Welcome back. We appreciate your support and hope you enjoy the story we've crafted for you. Imagine being asked to pay for your wife's affair's divorce, but when you make the choice to disappear, the truth that comes to light 5 years later will change everything. Without further delay, let's begin the story. Subscribe to Cheating Tales Lab for more shocking stories about betrayal, heartbreak, and revenge. I never imagined it would end this way. When I first married Kelly, I thought we had it all: a beautiful house, a growing family, and a bond that felt unbreakable. We'd been high school sweethearts, and I believed we could conquer anything together. But in the blink of an eye, everything came crashing down. It started subtly at first. Kelly began working late more often, staying out with friends. Then it was business trips she never mentioned before, and the sudden need to take personal space. She assured me it was nothing, that I was just being paranoid, but deep down, I knew something was off. The distance between us grew, and my gut told me this wasn't just about her career or stress at home. It was something else. One day, as I was going through some bills on the kitchen counter, I found a hotel receipt that didn't add up. It was for a 2-night stay at a luxury resort, on the day she had told me she was going on a work trip. My heart sank. I confronted her immediately, and for a moment, she froze. Then she said the words that broke me. "I made a mistake," she confessed. "I've been seeing someone else." The world seemed to stop. My mind raced, trying to process what I had just heard. The woman I had loved for years, the mother of my children, had been unfaithful. It felt like a betrayal I couldn't come back from. But it didn't end there. Kelly's affair wasn't just with any man. It was with someone powerful. A man who had a reputation for using his wealth and influence to get what he wanted. His name was Richard Walker, a successful businessman, married and wealthy beyond belief. Kelly's affair had been going on for months, and she had been living a double life. I was furious, heartbroken, and lost. But the thing that cut the deepest was the request that came next, something I will never forget. Kelly came to me, tears in her eyes, and asked me for money. Not for the kids, not for the bills, but for her affair's divorce. Richard's wife had caught wind of everything, and Kelly wanted me to pay for the divorce settlement so Richard wouldn't face public disgrace. It was a strange request, almost like a demand. She needed my help to cover her tracks and save Richard's reputation. The anger that surged through me was like nothing I had ever felt before. How could she ask me, the person she had betrayed, to clean up the mess she had made? To make her affair disappear? It felt like a slap in the face. The audacity of it was overwhelming. I thought about it for days, but the more I considered it, the more I realized I couldn't do it. I couldn't be the person to cover for her mistakes. I couldn't help her pay for a divorce that wasn't even my problem. So I made the decision to walk away, not just from the affair, but from everything. I packed up my things, left the house, and vanished. I cut ties with Kelly, with our life together, and I started anew. I moved far away, far from the betrayal, the lies, and the wreckage of what was once my life. But while I was physically gone, the emotional scars remained. I thought I had left everything behind, but the truth of the situation, the consequences of Kelly's actions, would come back to haunt both of us in ways I never could have imagined. 5 years had passed since I walked away from Kelly, from the lies, from the betrayal. At first, I felt like I was free. The weight of everything she'd done to me, the constant reminders of her affair, the shame, it all started to fade into the past. I got a new job, made new friends, and tried to rebuild my life. But deep down, I always knew there was more to the story. What Kelly didn't know was that I kept tabs on her. I couldn't help it. I knew her well, and I needed to know what happened to the life I once shared with her. But more importantly, I wanted to know what happened after I vanished. Had she gotten away with it all? Occasionally, I would check social media or run into mutual acquaintances who would mention her and the kids. She'd stayed in touch with people we both knew, but something didn't sit right. Every time I heard her name or saw her post a family picture, a wave of anger and confusion would hit me. I wanted answers, but I had to be patient. I had to let things unfold on their own. Then, one day, I received an unexpected call. It was from a private investigator named Frank. He said he had information about Kelly and Richard Walker that I needed to hear. At first, I thought it was just some scam. Why would anyone be contacting me after all these years? But Frank was persistent, and his tone was serious. "I've been hired by someone close to Kelly," he told me. "She's been keeping secrets, big ones, and I think you're part of the story." His words felt like a punch to the gut. I'd been living my life thinking I'd put everything behind me, and now this? I had to know what he meant, what Kelly had been hiding all these years. Frank explained that Kelly had been in contact with Richard for the entire 5 years I had been gone. The affair didn't end with a divorce. It continued, and they had been hiding their relationship from everyone. But that wasn't the worst part. Richard was still married to his wife, and Kelly wasn't just the other woman anymore. She was involved in something much deeper, something dangerous. According to Frank, Kelly and Richard had been working together to manipulate people, including their own families, for financial gain. They were part of a large scheme that involved money laundering and illegal deals, and it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. Frank believed Kelly was in over her head, and now she was scared. She needed to get out, and she wanted me to be the one to help her. I couldn't believe it. The woman who had asked me to cover up her affair's divorce was now part of a criminal operation, and I had no idea how deep it went. But what shocked me the most was how Frank explained her desperation. "She's running out of time," Frank said. "She's scared, and she thinks you're the only one who can help her get away from all this." My heart raced. The rage I had felt toward her all those years ago began to mix with something else. Concern. She had betrayed me, but now she was involved in something dangerous. I couldn't help but wonder if she was still the woman I once loved, or if the person I thought I knew had completely disappeared. Frank went on to explain that Kelly had been reaching out to me, indirectly, through old friends and acquaintances. She needed me to help her escape, but there was more at play here than I had realized. If I didn't step in, everything would fall apart. Not just for Kelly, but for me too. The web of lies and manipulation that Richard and Kelly had created was vast, and I was now connected to it in ways I hadn't expected. I had two choices. I could turn away and keep running from the past, or I could face Kelly once again and risk everything for the truth. I wasn't sure what the right choice was, but I knew one thing for sure. If I didn't step in now, I might never get the chance to undo the damage that had been done. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, and I couldn't ignore the feeling that something even darker was lurking beneath the surface. I had made up my mind. Despite everything Kelly had done to me, despite how much I resented her, I couldn't ignore the gravity of what Frank had just revealed. I had to know the truth. I had to face Kelly once again, no matter how painful it would be. I met with Frank the next morning in a quiet cafe, away from prying eyes. His face was grim as he slid a folder across the table to me. "These are the records I've gathered on Kelly and Richard. It's worse than you think," he said, his voice low. "They've been laundering money for years, using both legitimate businesses and some very shady deals. This is no small operation. They've hurt people, ruined lives, and now they're coming for yours too." I opened the folder, my eyes scanning through the papers. Bank transfers, coded messages, illegal transactions. Kelly's name was listed multiple times, linked to accounts I never knew existed. She had been involved in more than just an affair. She had been complicit in an elaborate criminal network. I could hardly wrap my mind around it. Frank leaned in, his voice lowering even further. The worst part? They've set you up. Richard knows exactly who you are and what you mean to Kelly. If you're not careful, you'll be dragged into this mess. You could be implicated in a way you can't get out of. I felt a knot form in my stomach. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the consequences of everything Kelly had done and how my involvement could pull me into a dangerous game I had no desire to play. I knew I had to confront her. This had gone beyond betrayal, beyond the affair. It was about something far more dangerous, and I couldn't let her drag me into it. I left the cafe with more questions than answers, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. The following day, I called Kelly. My hand shook as I dialed her number. For 5 years, I had avoided speaking to her, and now I was calling her, knowing that the truth had to come out. The moment she picked up, her voice trembled. "Mike, is everything okay?" She sounded worried, but I could tell it was more out of fear than concern. She knew what I had uncovered. "We need to talk," I said. "In person. Now." I could feel her hesitation on the other end, but after a long pause, she agreed. I arranged to meet her at a park where we used to go when we were dating, before everything fell apart. The irony of it wasn't lost on me. We were about to face the darkest truths of our relationship in the same place where it all began. When she arrived, she looked different. Aged, worn, and nervous. Her eyes were bloodshot, like she hadn't slept in days. She approached me cautiously, as though she wasn't sure what to expect. "I know what you've found," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mike, please." I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I stared at her, trying to process everything. "You didn't mean for it to happen? You lied to me for years. You dragged me into this mess, into a life I didn't choose. You didn't mean for it to happen, Kelly? Or did you just think you could get away with it?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you. But Richard, he got in my head. We were both using each other. I thought I was doing what I needed to do to protect myself. But I was wrong. I've been trapped. I never thought it would go this far." "Trapped?" I exclaimed, the anger bubbling to the surface. "You're not the victim here, Kelly. You destroyed everything, our family, our trust, everything we had. You've been living this double life for years, and now you expect me to just step in and fix it." She looked down, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. But I don't know how to get out of this. I need your help, Mike. I'm scared. Richard's dangerous and he won't let me go. I need to disappear." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She wasn't asking for a second chance. She was begging me for help. But how could I help someone who had shattered my world? I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. "You should have thought about that before you got involved in all of this. You've put me in a position where I have no choice but to protect myself. I don't know if I can help you, Kelly, but if you want out of this, you're going to have to come clean. To everyone." She nodded slowly, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I'll do whatever it takes. Just please, help me." I stood up, my heart heavy with the weight of the situation. The woman I once loved, the mother of my children, had been involved in something far darker than I could have ever imagined. But now, I had a choice to make, whether to save her or let her face the consequences of her actions. I left the park that day with more questions than answers. Kelly was in deep, deeper than I had ever imagined, and I had no idea how I was supposed to navigate this mess. My heart was torn. There was a part of me that still wanted to believe in her, the woman I once loved. But the other part, the part that had been betrayed, knew that I could never fully trust her again. I didn't sleep that night. My mind raced with all the new information Frank had given me, the choices Kelly had made, and how I was now tied into all of this. The stakes had shifted dramatically. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. This was about survival. The next morning, I decided to get proactive. If Kelly wasn't going to come clean to everyone, then I would force her hand. I called Frank, explaining everything I had learned during my conversation with Kelly. He was silent for a moment before he spoke. "You need to act fast," he warned. "Richard isn't just a businessman. He's dangerous. He's not going to let Kelly go. And if you're involved, he'll make sure you're dragged down with her. This isn't just about saving her anymore. It's about saving yourself, too." His words stuck with me. I had no illusions about Richard anymore. The man was ruthless, and if he thought I posed a threat to his operation, there was no telling how far he'd go to shut me down. I knew what I had to do. It wasn't just about confronting Kelly. It was about making sure this web of lies unraveled before I got caught in it. I had to play it smart. I couldn't make any sudden moves, or I'd be buried under the weight of everything they had created. So I did what I knew best. I started investigating. I gathered all the evidence I could find on Richard's operation, on Kelly's role in it, and on the criminal network they had both been feeding into. It wasn't just about exposing them anymore. It was about getting ahead of the game. Weeks passed. I had a file growing thicker and thicker by the day. I watched Richard closely, followed his moves, and started to put the pieces of the puzzle together. But the more I uncovered, the more I realized that nothing was what it seemed. Kelly hadn't just been a bystander. She had been more involved than I could have ever imagined. One afternoon, as I was going through the files at my apartment, I received an unexpected visitor. It was Kelly. She showed up unannounced, frantic, and clearly terrified. "I need your help," she said, her voice shaky. "Richard knows you're on to him. He knows I've been talking to you. He's threatening to hurt me. And worse, he's going after the kids. Mike, I don't know what to do. He's dangerous and he's getting more desperate." Her words hit me like a cold slap. It wasn't just about her anymore. Richard wasn't going to stop. He was going to escalate things, drag my family into it, and make sure we both paid for even thinking about crossing him. But there was something else in Kelly's eyes. Something I hadn't seen before. Guilt. Genuine remorse. She wasn't just afraid of Richard. She was afraid of what she had done, of how far she had gone. But was that enough to convince me to help her? I hesitated, standing up to face her. "You don't understand, Kelly," I said, my voice firm. "This isn't just about you anymore. You've put me and the kids in danger. If I help you now, I'm signing up for a fight I can't win. I don't know if I can trust you, not after everything." She fell silent, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Mike, I know I messed up. I know I've made terrible choices, but I'm asking you, from the bottom of my heart, to help me get out of this. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. I'm begging you." Her desperation was real, and I could see it. But there was still something gnawing at me, a feeling that told me helping her could be the biggest mistake of my life. That's when the doorbell rang. I turned to look at Kelly, her face pale with fear. The timing couldn't have been worse. I walked over and peered through the peephole. To my surprise, it wasn't just anyone standing outside. It was Richard, and he wasn't alone. I stood there, staring at the door, my heart racing. Richard, the man who had turned Kelly's life into a whirlwind of lies and danger, was now standing on the other side, and he wasn't alone. Two men flanked him, both towering figures who looked like they had stepped straight out of a mob movie. Kelly's face went ashen, her hand trembling as she grabbed mine. "Mike, we have to go. Now." But I couldn't move. I was stuck in place, my mind reeling from the sudden arrival of Richard and his goons. What did he want? And why now? My pulse thundered in my ears as I turned to Kelly, her eyes filled with fear. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, my voice cold but steady. "This ends now." I marched to the door and opened it, coming face to face with Richard. He stood there, smug, his eyes scanning me like I was nothing more than an inconvenience. I don't know why you think you can keep playing games with me, Mike, Richard said, his voice low and threatening. You've poked around enough, and now you've made it personal. You've dug into things you don't understand, and now you'll regret it. I looked him dead in the eye. What I understand is that you've been hiding behind power and money for far too long. You thought you could use Kelly to cover your tracks, but she's not your pawn anymore. I'm not your pawn either. Richard's smile faltered for a brief second, but he quickly regained composure. You think you can take me down? You think you can expose me and get away with it? You have no idea how deep this runs. I could feel the tension in the air thickening, and for a moment, I wondered if this was it. If this was the end of everything. The end of my fight for justice. For truth. But I wasn't going to back down now. I already know enough to bury you, Richard, I said, stepping forward. I know about your illegal deals, your manipulation. You might have money, but you don't have control anymore. His eyes narrowed. You think you can play hero? You think I'm scared of you? I've built an empire. You're nothing. But just as he took a step closer, something unexpected happened. Kelly, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. The expression on her face was no longer one of fear. It was one of resolve. Richard, she said, her voice shaking but determined. It's over. I'm done. The shock on his face was instant. For the first time in years, I saw him lose his composure. He opened his mouth to say something, but Kelly cut him off. You've destroyed enough lives. Mine. Mike's. The kids, she continued. You made me do things I'm not proud of, but I'm not going to let you drag me any deeper into your mess. I'm done. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Kelly, the woman who had betrayed me, the woman who had asked me to cover up her affair's divorce, was finally standing up for herself. But even more shocking, she was standing up to Richard, the very man who had controlled her life for so long. Richard looked furious, his fists clenched. You think you can just walk away from this? You think I'll let you go? He snarled. But before he could say another word, the doorbell rang again. This time, it was the police. Frank had been working behind the scenes, gathering evidence, and had tipped off law enforcement about Richard's criminal activities. The police had arrived with a warrant to arrest Richard for fraud, money laundering, and his involvement in illegal dealings. Richard's face drained of color as he realized his time had run out. The walls were closing in, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The officers moved in, handcuffing him and reading him his rights as he stood there, stunned and defeated. As he was escorted out of the apartment, I turned to Kelly. For the first time in years, I saw a glimmer of the woman I once knew. She wasn't perfect, and neither was I. But in that moment, we both understood something important. We had both been victims of Richard's manipulation. And now, we were free. It took months to truly rebuild. The legal battles, the paperwork, and the emotional toll of everything we had endured weighed heavily on both of us. But eventually, we found peace, together as a family. We were no longer under the shadow of Richard's control, and Kelly had finally freed herself from his grip. But the road ahead wasn't easy. It never is when trust has been shattered. However, we learned to forgive, not just each other, but ourselves. What about you? Have you ever had to deal with someone trying to control your life? Or someone who betrayed you in ways you couldn't imagine? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you dealt with it. Did you fight back? Did you walk away? Like, share, and subscribe for more true life stories of betrayal, redemption, and overcoming the impossible. Don't miss the next shocking tale that will leave you on the edge of your seat.